Wes Hall, min friend, and welcome to yet another unscripted rant, my dear friends, and welcome for those of you who are here for the first time. Welcome to European Lore, a channel of a humble Czech guy who likes to rant about fantasy on the internet, a man who has devoted his entire personal and academic life to the finer things, to the greats of the fantasy genre of the 20th century, as well as Old English literature and language. And that is why my channel is from a huge part devoted to defending these great stories that we all love against vile creatures of Prime Video, Disney+, Netflix, and so on and so forth. So please do feel free to check out my other videos that I have made in the past. Now, I have received some requests lately, and those requests are concerning Peter Jackson's The Lord of the Rings trilogy. Now, we will leave the Hobbit trilogy aside for the moment and only focus on The Lord of the Rings, because, let us be honest, it is the superior of the two. And even though I have made multiple videos on the matter in the past, and you can find them on my channel, I think it would be only appropriate to address this again, to reiterate, to repeat what I have already said. For those of you who might have joined my channel recently and don't really necessarily feel like searching for those videos on my channel. Now, if you've joined only now, my dear friends, let me tell you that I do not like adaptations at all. If it were up to me, I would cancel, I would ban making any adaptations of anything in the entire entertainment industry. Now, I am just alright with the source material, believe it or not. There is nothing better, as far as Professor Tolkien goes, than Professor Tolkien, than the books that he actually wrote himself, and either they were published during his life or were posthumously published, edited and published by his son Christopher. Well then, but even I have to say that I do like certain adaptations, and quite objectively, it is possible to rank them and say that they are objectively very good, very well made. Well, there are cases like this. For example, The Godfather, which I think might be the best adaptation of a book in general. But then, right next to it, sharing the first spot in the spotlight, is The Lord of the Rings by Peter Jackson. Now, of course, even those who like Peter Jackson's trilogy say that, oh, but there are so many changes, or there are so many additions, such as, for example, things that he added to, let's say, the Two Towers at the Battle of the Helm's Deep, when the Elven army arrived, which, well, didn't happen in the book. Or he omitted things like the omission of Tom Bombadil, which is something that many people don't like. Or changes in personalities of certain characters, like Aragorn, who is much more regal in the books than he is in the films. But we have to take into consideration one thing. These are two different media. A book is a book and a film is a film. And yes, why am I doing this? Well, of course I'm going to compare the Peter Jackson trilogy to The Rings of Prime, to The Rings of Power, that was just recently, well, about 5 months ago, released by the abhorrent Prime Video. And there are many differences. The first, and the most striking difference, and the most important difference is that The Lord of the Rings trilogy by Peter Jackson is a quality product. These are good films. Excellent, objectively very well, perfectly made films. And The Rings of Power is shit. It's very, no, the dialogues are cringy. It really resembles as if it was writing by an AI, which I don't think it was, and that makes it even worse. But it really is very bad. And it is not an adaptation of Tolkien's books at all. Not even the appendices that the showrunners have boasted about. No, it's absolutely new, constructed. It's got nothing to do with the professor. Just a couple of names from the appendices from the books, like Galadriel, like Elrond, like Gil-galad, like Sauron. Which, of course, then those characters that appeared in The Rings of Prime are not the characters that are in the books. Do you really think that Galadriel really is the same in the books as she is in The Rings of Prime? Absolutely bloody not. And then the additions of many more things, like the all-new invented Legendarium. that would be bad and cringy, even if it didn't bear the name The Lord of the Rings, because do remember that it really is called The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, The Rings of Power being the subtitle of it. The absolutely constructed origin of Mordor, when you turn a key and there's like a dam that breaks and floods a volcano and the volcano erupts and makes Mordor. Whoa, that's stupid as hell. And then the absolutely fictitious origin of Mithril, which apparently, according to Prime Video, is firstly, it contains light of the Silmarils, and secondly, it's like a life potion to elves and cures leaves. Okay, that makes complete sense. Or Halbrand? Halbrand being Sauron. Completely abandoning the idea of Anatar. Completely abandoning the idea of Anatar looking like an angelic elf. Really? No, he just looks like a bloke. Good, fine, and yes, him having this clear apparent sexual energy with Galadriel. You can't look me straight in the eye and say that this is an adaptation of Tolkien's books. Come on. Like, come on. You can't mean it seriously. And even, all right. If you don't want to admit it to me, admit it to yourselves. All right, then. So, you can clearly recognize that Peter Jackson's trilogy is adapting the Lord of the Rings book. It is the adaptation. You can clearly see the story there. Many things have been changed. Many things have been omitted and added, but you can see that it is the adaptation of the Lord of the Rings. It respects the lore, and it's all about it. Respect the lore. Respect for Tolkien. Keep the core. The atmosphere of the Lord of the Rings. Respect the professor. And Peter Jackson said it multiple times in interviews. They did not want to put themselves into the film. They wanted to honor the professor. They didn't want to put their own invented ideologies or anything that they believed in. They just loved the Lord of the Rings. They loved the works of the professor, and they made the films out of pure and sheer love and passion. Fortunately, they had this awesome luck to be able to gather the best artists in the world. The director, the actors, the artists, the concept artists, Weta Workshop, Weta Digital, who brought the Lord of the Rings to life visually, who made all the armor, all the weapons, all the miniatures, all the sets, all the special effects, all the CGI, masterfully and perfectly. So much that it stands up and holds up today, more than 20 years later, and it actually looks much better than The Rings of Power, which had much bigger budget than The Lord of the Rings by Peter Jackson. Even if you transferred the budget into today's money. So, there you go. First and foremost, that. Secondly, people have fallen in love with The Lord of the Rings and Professor Tolkien thanks to Peter Jackson. There are many people like this. He brought thousands and thousands of people to reading the books of Professor Tolkien thanks to his masterful piece of work. Those are beautiful fantasy action films that are really able to keep the attention of a common viewer for 12 hours in general if you watch the extended editions. And even when he made the changes, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, the addition of the Elvish army in Helm's Deep, the change in the personality of Aragorn, and the omission of Tom Bombadil, those things fitted the medium. Those things fitted into that particular work of art, into that particular adaptation. A more rugged, more ranger, more stranger Aragorn than an Elessar Aragorn just grasps the attention of the common reader more than this more of a colder, more regal, more kingly Aragorn. And he fits into this action film Because we have to take into consideration that The Lord of the Rings, the book, is an epic fantasy story, yes. But it's not only about battles and fights. But the movie always has to be more about fights and action scenes. You want to show it to millions of people all around the world. And most people enjoy action in films. So he had to make these little tweaks and changes, which I would be okay in The Rings of Power. I would be okay if they changed a couple of things. But not for them to invent an entire new story and call it The Lord of the Rings. This is absolutely stupid. This is silly. On the other hand, let's not go to Camelot. It is a silly place. And it wasn't funny at all. The Lord of the Rings by Peter Jackson, it has its funny moments, amusing moments that have inspired many memes and many parodies all over the world throughout the 20 years of its existence. And they are well meant. They are not mocking The Lord of the Rings by Peter Jackson. They are praising it. They are complimenting it. Oh, yes, The Rings of Power has inspired many memes and jokes as well. But they don't mean it well, do they? We are mocking it because it deserves the mockery. So the final and finishing thoughts are these. And it's very simple. We don't have to go into depth. We don't have to delve into detailed analyses and write long theses. No, we don't. The truth of the matter is that the Lord of the Rings trilogy by Peter Jackson, they are excellently made films. They are a quality product. And they are respecting the source material, full stop. And The Rings of Power is the complete opposite of it. It is not an adaptation of anything. It does not respect any law. There is no law in the show in the first place that would have anything to do with Professor Tolkien. And secondly, quite objectively, the show is bad. It's just bad. The writing's bad. The acting's bad. The CGI is mediocre. The practical effects are mediocre. The costumes look horrible. They look plastic. They look as if they were made on a very, very small budget. And we could go on and on and on. So, my dear friends, I hope that I have very simplistically repeated and reiterated what I have said in the past multiple times. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments down below what you think. And that will be all. Thank you very much for watching. And namaste.